Welcome to the bold analysis. I squarely blame the Nairobi's casual diplomatic blunder behind the current Tanzania-Kenya emotional brew going on. And someone can challenge me on this. For the last 1 week, Tanzania officials breached, according to me, an East African Treaty of Free Movement, hiding under a narrative known as political meddling. And after they actually deported Martha Karua and a number of activists, they claimed they were hiding under what they call political meddling. But you can't seem to see the offense. And in this podcast, I honestly want to agree with those who are telling our President William Ruto that apologizing to Tanzania is actually a reverse psychology. And probably the Nairobi team made a big mistake. And that is why Suluhu, the current, the social media uproar on Samia Suluhu is something that will be avoided. In this podcast, I'm going to demonstrate to you, looking at the lenses of Uhuru Kenyatta and Amina Mohamed back in 2017-2018, what Musalia Mudavadi ought to have done. And if you want to get the gist of this analysis, I still want to request you to subscribe to this channel. I've done my research here, and I promise you this is a good piece for you. If you want to listen to a very good perspective about this push and pull between Tanzania and Kenya, then this is your podcast. This is the podcast for you. Subscribe, click the notification bell, and like our videos. And thank you very much for supporting this podcast. Here, we give it a wider perspective. Martha Karua, a former justice minister who has been vocal about democratic backsliding in East Africa and was also standing in solidarity with Kizza Besigye in Uganda, was accompanied by other activists and other lawyers just to observe court proceedings that were going on against Tundu Lissu, the Chadema party leader who has been banned from participating in the October elections in Tanzania, and allegedly because he refused to sign some code of conduct, election code of conduct. He refused to sign because that election code of conduct is actually saying that he can be banned from contesting if he makes some breaches. And the mere fact that Tanzania can ban the opposition and one of the strongest opponent of Suluhu to participate in an election can just tell you that the MPs bashing Kenya, I think Tanzania still cannot match Kenya, because that cannot happen here. That cannot. Mgala moya hakimpe. Do you think Ruto can ban Raila from vying? Let's assume in 2022. Do you think there's a way even Uhuru Kenyatta could ban Ruto from vying? No. And even now, if they pick Matiang'i as the candidate, do you think the current administration, will they have the range to ban that candidate? No. And I think what Kenya is glorifying is a very bad precedence. After they were deported, that was Karua, human rights activist Lynn Ngugi, and another member of Law Society of Kenya, Gloria Kimani. They were deported immediately. They arrived in Dar es Salaam. They were deported immediately back to Kenya. What followed was deportation of Boniface Mwangi, former Chief Justice Mutunga, and other Agatha from Uganda, they were all deported from Tanzania. But Nairobi behaved casually. At that time, Kenyans were looking for the country. They were looking for Kenya to defend itself. We needed to defend the position. And in fact, it was a diplomatic gaffe. We were demanding answers as to why they've been deported. What followed is Musalia Mudavadi. This was Musalia Mudavadi speaking in Citizen. And I want you to listen to Musalia Mudavadi and Sudi. So what Nairobi did was to go and side with Samia Suluhu. They sided with Samia Suluhu blindly, without interrogating, or rather, lack of that aspect, interrogating, or rather they were glorifying something that was actually an illegality.
Sometimes our comments have lacked serious integrity.
Good. I want to ask you this question. Yeah. Comments and utterances. So are you saying that they had made some comments and utterances there that were offensive to the Tanzanian government?
These are facts we will have to establish.
But you seem to be agreeing.
No. I'm agreeing to some extent with what she has said.
Do you think that statement then sends out a wrong signal about you agreeing with the manner in which they were deported?
No, I don't think.
Because in as much as their utterances may be uncomfortable, it is the freedom of speech. And until it crosses the line to become a criminal matter, then that is something else altogether. Whilst you or I may be offended, are you then saying that curtailing the freedom of speech is something that you agree with? In line with what President Samia Suluhu is saying?
No. She has said that she's unhappy, okay? And she says that because they observe what we do here, okay? Now,
But that has no bearing in terms of evidence on what they were doing.
And that is why I said I will need a little more time to get more evidence into the details of the operations, because there are incidents that have happened, so we'll pick up and get the facts. But let me just, to the point of saying whether we have displayed decency, I'm not talking about the individuals in question here, but she's talking from a general viewpoint.
Okay.
And if it is a general viewpoint, I think she has a point.
All right.
Siku mbili kama hawa ndio warudi nyumbani wakiwa na heshima. Hii kimbelembele ya Kenya na freedom na demokrasia tuko nayo. Fanyeni tu hapa, lakini msidhani msipeleka hapa kwingine hapa nje. So hii kelele yote mnapiga, sasa watu walihurumia tu kwa sababu ni marafiki yetu. Ingekuwa tu hawatujui, hiyo ujuaji mko nayo. Sasa mnajifanya tunataka kwenda kufanya kesi ya Tanzania. Si umemaliza kesi hapa hii makoti yetu hapa. Tumsaidie watu wenye wajiwezi wamezama huko kwa mapiso. Wamezama huko, kuna mtu anafanyia kesi huko kotini hapa. So mjitolee mfanye free. Hii kimbelembele hii muache tafadhali. Mamu I wish ndio mnajua demokrasia yetu na yani mko na demokrasia, mko na freedom ya kila kitu, lakini msipeleke kwa nje wenyewe. Hiyo ujuaji yetu ya Kenya hii iishie tu hapa Kenya.
But I want to tell you why. Because the Kenya Kwanza believe Karua is part of the opposition in Kenya. They believe that Boniface Mwangi and Mutunga is part of the social, civil society. And so they had to settle political scores, or rather they had to punish them. And by Kenya supporting the deportation from Uganda, I think the Nairobi team were thinking, we have done something, we have punished them. In fact, Boniface Mwangi was dropped somewhere in Ukunda. And something that has really been questionable in very opaque manner. So ladies and gentlemen, Nairobi made that blunder. And immediately that happened, Samia Suluhu was first to come and say, utovu wa nidhamu. And you know, while you were doing that, Kenyans were asking, mbona usupport mtu wetu? So the public left, they were left helpless the administration that is supposed to support and give answers about it, they were left stranded. And then they took to social media to vent their frustration. Immediately after now Kenya sided with Samia Suluhu, Kenyans went to social media to vent their frustration, taking all forms of pictures and I need to admit, I didn't see very good pictures there. AI generated videos of X-rated content around just about Suluhu. But all this, William Ruto needed to do what Amina Mohammed did in 2018. In 2017, October, when Magufuli was the president, there was a businessman from Tanzania who imported chicks, some 5,000 live chicks from Kenya. Zile ndogondogo, zile za kulea. And Magufuli administration banned all of them, saying that they had the risk of spreading some flu in Tanzania. But Kenya said no. The chicks that we've supplied, they have no history of flu. And that was 2017 November. The following year, in 2018 February, Tanzania again banned another 6,400 chicks from another businessman. They were also imported from Kenya. And Kenya said no. What two steps did? Amina Mohammed, who was the Foreign Affairs CS that time, wrote what is called a protest note. They summoned, they recalled. That's what Uhuru Kenyatta did then. Uhuru Kenyatta recalled ambassador from Tanzania and summoned the Tanzania ambassador here. Then from that time, the discussion went to boardroom, with Uhuru and Magufuli engaging in conversation above board. 4 months later, Uhuru Kenyatta made a trip to Tanzania and handed over some chicks to Magufuli. And that thing was restored. Oh, come on. That is why some of us say that we politicize something that should be very technical. In fact, they have opened a window without questioning as to why. Someone saying, mtu anaenda ku, like for example, Mgala Mwe Hakimpe in Uganda. Martha Karua was in Uganda. He went there to represent Kizza Besigye. Even though he was not allowed, she was not allowed. But there was no much hostility at being deported, no, because she had the license to practice in Uganda. In Kenya here, we have people doing business here. If you go to Gikomba, you'll find Tanzanians in Gikomba. We have people, the Tanzanian music has a big market in Kenya. They host some of the big concerts here in Kenya. Likewise, Kenyans import avocado and maize from Tanzania. But what then was an illegality was executed in the altar of politics, and Kenya made a blunder. And after that, it went overboard. Now, because Tanzanian MPs knew that the Nairobi team is supporting them, and the public, Kenyan public, had descended on Suluhu, they came up with all manner of abuses and insults on Martha Karua.
Mwisho wa siku, Mheshimiwa Waziri, tusipokuwa wakali, tutajenga taifa ambalo kitu kikifanyika kidogo tu unarushwa kwenye mtandao. Kitu kikikosewa kidogo tu unarushwa kwenye mtandao. Tunaomba sheria zichukue mkondo wake kwa kulinda hadhi ya mwanamke yoyote anaosemwa vibaya kwenye mtandao, hata kama umegombana na mume wako, hana mamlaka ya kurusha chochote kwamba huyu mwanamke nimemwacha kwenye mtandao. Tunahitaji privacy ya ndoa, tunahitaji privacy ya wanawake, kwa sababu tunajua mwanamke akilindwa taifa linaendelea. Tukafanya kila tunachofanya, tukafanya any kind of bullying kwenye mitandao, na mbaya zaidi tunasema Wakenya wanafanya, lakini Watanzania tunachukua tunasambaza kwenye mitandao. Na mamlaka husika za nchi mko wapi kuona kwamba okay, bullying inafanywa, cyber bullying inafanywa na hao watu wa nje tunasema, lakini zinasambaza kwenye mitandao ya Kitanzania? Where are we? Kwani tunaruhusu hii? Ni udhalilishaji, na unaweza kuona kama ni udhalilishaji kwa sababu mama, yani rais wetu ni mwanamke. Nikafikiri kama angekuwa ni mwanamume, hizi cyber bullying ambazo zingeweza kufanyika. Lazima tukatae. Tukiendelea kujua kwamba sisi sote ni watoto wa mama Afrika Mashariki, mamlaka za nchi ya Tanzania na mamlaka za nchi jirani, ambapo sijaona nchi jirani mamlaka zake zikikondemu hili. Mshirikiane mambo ya ndani ya hapa, idara ya mawasiliano na kule Kenya, tuwakamate hawa wajenzi wakuu. Lakini kuna klipu zingine ukisikiliza, Mheshimiwa Naibu Spika, toneshi na Kiswahili ni Mtanzania. They are just hiding kwa ambao wanatokea Kenya. They are pretending wanamdhalilisha mama. Msitweze utu wa mtu. Sio tu kwa rais. Mimi ni activist wa haki za binadamu. Siwezi kuruhusu kumtweza hata mtoto wa darasa la kwanza. Leave alone the president ambaye ndo amebeba nembo ya taifa letu, ambao kwa kweli kama taifa hatuwezi tukaruhusu. Mheshimiwa Naibu Spika, mama alikuja na fora. Tunajua kabisa mimi ni mpinzani. Huko nyuma tulikuwa tuwezi kufanya hata vikao vya kamati kuu ya chama ndani ya jengo. Tulikuwa tuwezi kufanya hata mikutano ya hadhara. Lakini mama fora yake watu wanafanya mikutano ya hadhara. Tanzania mtu unakuwa na freedom of express. Sisi sio mara ya kwanza, mimi nishaikuwa gerezani, sio mara ya kwanza kiongozi wa upinzani kupelekwa gerezani. Mheshimiwa Mboya ameshakaa miezi 4 nikiwa naye, tukatoka, baadaye akaja akapewa tena akaenda gerezani kwa miezi 8 kwa treason. Hatukuona haya mambo yakitokea. So at a time lazima tujiulize kama nchi kuna kitu behind the carpet, yani kwa nini sasa hivi?
And they stooped to their lowest by going X-rated statements on Martha Karua. Gender X-rated content statements on Martha Karua. They did have to go that, and someone should sit back with, the president should sit back and review. Is that until now Kenyans fell wale sasa wametudharau? And remember, I want you to look at it, and the reason why I'm saying Kenya, the Nairobi team was a letdown in all this. Tanzania was wrong. Samia Suluhu was wrong. It's just a coward who doesn't want to be challenged. But do you know that it is Kenyan Gen Z that are responding to the MPs? In Nairobi, 2 days, that was Tuesday and Wednesday, after all this, the parliament is yet to put that as a motion. Just to address and even summon the Foreign Affairs CS or someone from Foreign Affairs to try to cool the temperatures. Because according to them, if Tanzania deports a Kenyan and that Kenyan is their opponent, it is cool. We did not interrogate and question and defend Kenya in this context. In fact, if today Al-Shabaab make their way to Karen and abduct Rigathi, probably, let me use abduct, let me not give an example. Let me say they abduct any other opposition leader. Will Kenya stand in a solidarity with that person? Or they will say it is fine because Al-Shabaab is now arresting an opposition leader. And this is the problem with politicizing everything. What Tanzania did, I think instead of Ruto apologizing, they need to apologize. Because Suluhu has just given utovu na nidhamu. Utovu na nidhamu, where is the evidence?
Any word on what is coming out of Tanzanian parliament yesterday?
I have responded it adequately on Twitter. I have said a state that can openly violate its own constitution and laws, the laws of the region, international laws, is incapable of protecting the rights of its citizens, especially citizens charged with politically motivated cases like Tundu Lissu. And I have tagged all the necessary institutions. That suffices. We will not descend to their levels. Yes.
Members of Parliament in Tanzania.
I have already commented on that wholly.
Thank you.
Yeah, it will not be sectional, and do not elevate that to be cleanliness.
I must agree with the Tanzanian MP that there is nothing they can learn from Kenyans, because a student doesn't know what they will learn from their teacher until they have been taught. So after this is done and gone, then Tanzanians will discover that we have a more vibrant political space. We have certain liberties that they can only admire. And perhaps it will trigger them to demand more from their government, because ideally Tanzania lives in this illusional state that they have the best country, they have peace, they have prosperity, they have all those things. But in reality, those are just Potemkin villages that the CCM party builds for the country. But as it were, Tanzania might think Kenya is taking activism to them, but what they forget that we are now living in an extensively information-filled world, that you don't really have to be somewhere for you to learn about the new things that people are doing in different jurisdictions. Today, we've seen the kind of questioning that the United States Secretary of State has gone through, and the kind of questioning that the White House has gone through based on different allegations that their president made about South Africa, cancellation of student visas, and we don't have to be there to see all that is happening. So what Tanzania is trying to do is trying to inoculate their population from this current world that is full of information, is full of exchange of ideas. And I think it will not be too long until maybe the younger generation in Tanzania tries to think beyond the binary thoughts of Chadema and CCM, and perhaps want to have a more vibrant society with different perspectives and ideas. And if you look at what is happening in the region generally, we have a lot of Kenya's influence in the politics of the region, and that you cannot deny. The last elections that happened in Somaliland, in Hargeisa, you saw even the colors of the political parties were, imported from Kenya. We had one party that had adopted the orange color, and the other one had adopted the yellow color. So that is Kenya's influence in political messaging, in political communication, in political ideals and all that. So Tanzania undeniably something will have to give.
There is no single video clip of Mutunga, Karua, or Boniface Mwangi campaigning for Tundu Lissu, saying Tanzanians should vote for Tundu Lissu. And in fact, they're not even attending a political rally. They'll just get there, be in the court, after court, they leave. Surely, it would have not even blown. But because someone wanted to punish another person, you punish another person with an illegality. And it's now biting. It's now becoming a full-blown crisis between Tanzania and Kenya. And it's because of our own mistakes. I think someone is very wary and is fearful of what can happen, until they went to an extent of comparing Kenyan MPs. There are some searches that were done. Some of those MPs are dropouts. Come on. It didn't look well. And I think we made a mistake. Suluhu is hiding behind this issue of Nidhamu, Tovo Nidhamu thing. But in real sense, she's just fearing spillover of social media activism in Tanzania. It is normal in Tanzania that Tundu Lissu is locked up in some jail and nothing is happening and it is cool. And that is the party leader of the opposition party, the largest opposition party in Tanzania. And so they think, Suluhu feels that Kenyans will awaken those masses there. And another fear is this has been now facilitated by civil society groupings. So, you know, it is, and I've seen the comments. I've seen those videos, comments from Tanzania. They are very, they're very concerned, and they're shocked that these things are happening. And they're defending Kenya, because Suluhu cannot account for why he really they really deported the fellows. Nairobi used Tanzania officials to settle political scores, but they used an illegality to punish innocence. They used an illegality to punish innocence. You cannot find fault in it. And the worry here is Tanzania cannot be a safe landing for Kenyans under trouble. And I think they got it wrong. The breach of the East African Treaty on some shared freedoms, including freedom of movement, they need to be relooked. And on this one, while Tanzanians got it wrong by attacking Kenyans, but then Nairobi has to blame themselves for failing to shield those Kenyans who had been deported from Tanzania. Thank you.